Hey, it's Laura Helen from 831 Designs and Publishing. I'm super excited tonight. We have an incredible guest. Just tagged them in the video so that hopefully they'll be able to see it and hop on with us. Today we have a special upcoming author, Frank King. We've only connected today, so I'm not as prepared as I'd love to be with an interview, but I'm super excited to share his upcoming book. It's so much more than a book. It's a project. It's heartfelt. It's much needed, and it is not talked about enough. And it's just got such a passion. I know people personally who would benefit from this incredible book. If you know guys, get guys on this live. Hit up every guy you know. They have to come on. They have to come watch this incredible interview with this incredible guy. I'm just going to make sure I've invited him on to make sure he hops on and he's ready. Hey Joanne, hey Donald. Not been to an event for a while, so I've not seen you for a while. Here we go, let's just invite Frank King on. Here we go. My technical face. There we go. Okay. So we're going to wait for Frank to come on. He's got a new book coming out. It's not coming out until April, but it's so incredible. We connected today. I've been connected with authors to interview, and it's just been amazing. I'm so excited for him to share. It's so much more than a book. Hey, here he is. It's a whole project. It's things that people should be talking and sharing more about. I'm super excited. I'm just going to add him on now as soon as he accepts. Woo. So hopefully he's coming on. Please share this out there. Any guys out there, you know, bring them on. Book on. Doug, you have to watch, wait and see. I want so many guys on this book. So many women who, you know, have guys that are important to them on their lives. Just waiting for Frank to accept the invitation. Connecting. Here it comes. Yay!
It made me turn my phone because you got to turn your phone landscape.
I told you that before.
I know, but I'm a guy. You know, directions.
So while I have you, I'm going to quickly post a link to Frank's stuff while I have him right now.
That's right. Pimp so my stuff.
Worry about it. There we go.
By the way,
that's all on there.
The TEDx talk, the latest TEDx talk, it's called Suicide, the Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking.
I just watched your TED talk. I had someone who missed the call, so I was like, yeah, I can have a look and see what you're all about.
Oh, thank you.
You had me crying. I've been through stuff with guys personally in my life, so I love what you're doing. No one knows what we're talking about. I haven't told them about your book.
No, that's
yet.
right.
I've just told them
set it up a little bit. Yeah.
Go on.
You should set it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I am a suicide prevention speaker. I'm working on a book with a psychologist and a suicide prevention therapist. It's for men's mental fitness. It's called Guts, Grit, and the Grind, a mental fitness manual. And I didn't tell you when we chatted off air that the genesis of the book was she went to Barnes & Noble, Sarah Garrett did, and she was looking for a book on men's mental fitness. And nothing. You know, depression for dummies, bipolar for dummies, but nothing where it said, you know, this is for guys. So, and in the U.S., I don't know if I mentioned, but 7 out of 10 people who die by suicide in the U.S. are men 45, 54 years old. So it's an epidemic.
And it's so great. I love the main reason people write a book is because it's the book they needed and they couldn't find.
Yes, and
we
that's
find
what
out
Sarah,
most authors.
She was looking for the book, and I think, as I told you offline, I said she and the psychologist Sally Spencer Thomas came to me and said, "We have this book." And I mean, I knew them. I knew Sally from her work as a suicide loss survivor and a suicide prevention speaker. She was got this book, and we'd like you to. Would you mind? Would you join us, and would you make this funny? And I said, let me get this straight. You two ladies are writing a book about men's mental fitness. Don't you think you might need, I don't know, a man? And they're like, a man. So it's been.
Why do we think of that?
It's been a work of love, I do believe, because we're both. Sally is a suicide loss survivor. Her brother died by suicide. Sarah, a suicide loss survivor, one of her best friends when she was growing up, died by suicide, and now she's a suicide prevention. You know, people every now and then ask me, how'd you choose this topic? Hey, the topic chose me. I didn't have any choice. Which, you know what? It's it's organic. It's a passion. I have two mental illnesses. Excuse me. One's called major depressive disorder, which means I'm depressed 3 days to 2 weeks, and it recurs. Very common. The not the blues, not down in the dumps. I mean, it's just flat out, depression. Second one's called chronic suicidality, which is a lot less famous, a lot less well known. And that means for me, the option of suicide is always on the menu as an option, a solution for problems large and small. In my TED talk, I said that, when my car broke down, I had 3 thoughts unbidden. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, I could just kill myself. And the amazing thing about speaking on that subject is because it's rather rare. I had a young woman come up after a college event. She goes, I want to thank you for your keynote. And I said, you're welcome. She goes, but I got to tell you, it made me weep. I said, how did it make you weep? She goes, when you said your car broke down, you had 3 thoughts, get it fixed, buy a new one, or you could just kill yourself. She goes, I've been having those thoughts all my life. I didn't know there's a name for it. I thought it was some kind of freak. And when I heard that come out of your mouth and realized in that moment that I was not alone, I wept. So, it's conceivable by speaking out about it, we can save lives.
That's something that really touched me, where you said if you bring up the words depression and suicide, you can literally mentally count to 3 and someone will spill everything, even if you've just met them.
Yeah, I was on a
because
ship.
They hold on to.
Yeah, because they're just waiting. It's like they're waiting for the magic words to be uttered. On the TED Talk, I talk about how I'm on a ship and there's no place to sit for breakfast, and there's a woman at a table for 2, and I point, she nods, I sit. She looks up, she goes, are you the comedian? I go, did you enjoy the show? She goes, I did. I said, then I'm the comedian. She goes, wait a minute. What would you have said if I told you I hated the show? I'm a plumber from Des Moines. Just happens to look like the comedian. And she said to me, which a lot of people ask, by the way, work in Holland, America. A lot of people ask, is cruise comedy all you do? And I said, no, that's about 12 weeks a year. I'm a public speaker. Matter of fact, I said to her, let me brag a bit. I just nailed down a TED Talk, my first TED Talk. Yeah. She goes, I love the TED Talks. What's the topic? And I'm thinking, here we go. So I said, depression and suicide. And then I started that countdown in my head. 3, 2, 1. She goes, I tried to kill myself twice. We have literally just met. She saw me on stage, but she goes, first time in college, not particularly serious. Second time, I graduated college, I graduated medical school, I had the knowledge, I had the equipment. She goes, I had the IV started in my ankle. Suicide cocktail, one hand, syringe in the other, getting ready to load up, phone rings. She's thinking, do I answer it? Well, I better, because, whoever just might worry, come over and then interrupt. Picks up the phone, her 13-year-old son. Said, I don't know if he heard something in my voice or had a premonition, but he said, Mom, don't do anything. So I didn't. I didn't give up on the idea of suicide, but decided not to do it that day because, he would always he'd have survivor's guilt. He'd think it must have been something I could do or say to keep her from dying by suicide. And by the way, there are things you can do, things you can say. I said, well, how old is he now? She goes, he's 21. I said, does he know his phone call saved your life? She goes, no. How do you start that conversation? I thought that's the overarching theme of my TED Talk. That's the problem. Nobody wants to talk about it. So there's in the U.S., there's a group, duo called Big and Rich, kind of a country rock duo. They've got a song called Somebody's Got to Be Unafraid to Lead the Freak Parade. That's me. I get on stage and go, look, I got these 2 mental illnesses. Everybody in my family's on a psychotropic. I mean, my family's nuttier than a 25-pound bag of squirrel food. And so, you
have some crazy intense past stories. Just going through.
Oh, well, yeah, it's again, it's a topic that, chose me. There's a woman named Judy Carter, former comic and magician, became a speaker. She wrote a book called The Message of You, with the best subtitle I've ever heard. Message of You, turn your life into a money-making speaking career. I mean, could it be more specific? So I read the book thinking I got nothing to talk about, because I always, being funny is great. You can make people happy in 45 minutes. But I always felt like there was something missing. I always wanted to make a difference. And about halfway through the book, and I thought, man, I got a story. The mental health thing. I went to YouTube and looked up the topic of went to TED Talks. It was the TED.com site, the giant mothership site. Looked up talks on suicide. There were 3 of them. 3. There are 10,000 talks on all sorts of things. And then it hit me, well, duh. you know, if you're really good at suicide, you're probably not going to be recording a TED Talk. So I figured there's a niche in the market. There's the vacuum. Nobody's, and almost everybody has a story, a family member, a friend, a spouse, you know, something, some loss in their life, attempts, you know. So unfortunately, it's a growth industry.
It really is, and like you say, I think everyone knows someone. What was really great is you say how you do talk it, the words you can use, because I've had something personal in my life. Again, you mentioned it, I could spill it, and everyone's like, "Don't mention this, don't mention that," and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I was straight out. I'm very straightforward with those
Really?
things. So I'm like, "Are you suicidal? Do you have a plan?" They did. I'm like, "Okay, we cannot leave this person alone." And everyone's like, "Oh, blah 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 blah." I'm like, "This is serious. Oh, it's attention, blah." And I was just like, no, no, no. And it's so great to watch someone, you know, in this area go, you do this, you say this. So it's like, oh, and they're still with us today. I'm like, oh, it might have been those few little, just opening up and asking about it that made that difference. So
Well,
even for me was like, oh, you choked me completely.
well, thank you. Well, 8 out of 10 people are ambivalent. 8 out of 10 people want somebody to interrupt the cascade, the downward spiral. And as you said, if somebody's depressed, then you did exactly right. Do you have a plan? Okay, what is your plan? If it's detailed, like exactly what you did, do not leave them alone. You got to get them on the phone with the suicide prevention lifeline, or if they won't pick up the phone, you pick up the phone, and the volunteer will do their best to get the phone in the hand of the. And if they are, and the question always comes up, when do you call the cops? If they're a danger to themselves, I mean imminently, or someone else, you got to call the cops. It's gonna in the U.S. end up being a 3-day involuntary stay for them, and they may hate your guts. But look, I'd much rather have them alive and unfriend me on Facebook than you know, and think, oh man, I can't believe I didn't.
No, I love that. And you've got people on here going, oh, this is so needed. And it really is. And something we touched on off screen was how men only take advice from men.
Yes.
I love the fact that it's like, what did you say, like 42 guys in this book sharing their stories?
Yeah, 42 stories, basically 500 words of that life was good. 500 words in the middle, which is they call it midstream, where it went to hell in a handbasket, and then 500 words, here's how I'm coping. You know, a lot of these problems are not something you can get over. I used to say I battle depression, which I realize is a misnomer, because battle implies a win and it'll end. I live with depression. I can't win. I can lose and kill myself, and I've come close, but I can't win. It's basically like North and South Korea. It's just an unfriendly truce. It's always there. It's like mental music. It's always playing, or DOS underneath. It's always somebody said, you know, when you have a suicidal thought, you should just, you know, say banish, banish, banish. Oh Lord, I wish it were that simple. A friend of mine said you should choose joy. Really? Don't you think if that were possible, I would have done it like decades ago? Normal people just don't seem to understand, I don't think. Here's the example I use. It's like the Greek character Sisyphus, who was sentenced to push a rock up a hill every day. Gets near the top and it rolls back down. So if you have a mental illness, every day when you wake up, there's a rock in a hill. Some days the rock's small, the hill is not so steep. Some days the rock is a boulder and it's Everest. But every day, regardless, there's a rock in a hill. And when Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain passed away, famous people passed away, all my friends had questions, and they all got together, it seemed like, and they said, hey, Frank's suicidal. He'll know. Let's call him. So I became the national spokesman for people who are suicidal. But they wanted to know why somebody wanted to die, which is a misconception. I didn't want to die when I came close. I wanted to end the pain. It's pure and simple. That's the connection, by the way, with addiction and alcoholism. Those are almost always about ending a pain. And the second one was, why would somebody with all that, you know, fame, fortune, family, because it's not always situational. Most often it's not situational. I've been most depressed at the best times in my life. And I'm guessing Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade just got to the point where they woke up one morning, they couldn't move the rock. They were just tired. Because I don't think people who are normal understand the energy and the courage it takes to get out of bed in the morning, paste on a smile, put one foot in front of the other, don't let anybody know anything's wrong until it's time to go back to bed. I mean, it is exhausting. And they probably just, you know, they're just like, I'm done. I'm toast. So.
And Robin Williams, bless him, is another example of
yes,
a face with a smile. It wasn't really the smile.
No, and he was 62, and most of my normal friends goes, wow, so young. And I'm thinking, man, he made it with bipolar to 62 with all the other issues. He had heart surgery, which can cause or trigger depression. He had some kind of Parkinson's-like illness that causes memory loss, so he couldn't remember his lines anymore. And so his life was sort of spiraling, and you put all that together. And, you know, the thing about bipolar, in the manic phase, or in what they call hypomania, which is in between manic and depressive. In hypomania, it's this magic phase where you're charismatic and energetic and enthusiastic, and you take inspired risk. And when they come through, it looks like you're a genius. And you know, you don't need much sleep. And the problem is if you slip into manic or depressive. And so I'm guessing a lot of his acting and comedy was hypomania or mania. If you get too high into mania, then you get paranoid delusions, hallucinations. You don't sleep at all. But in that magic hypomania state, which is, I'm guessing, where and then people self-medicate drugs and alcohol to stay in that super productive state. But you can only self-medicate so long. I mean, he was famous for his addiction, you know, treatment and recovery. He had joked about it. He never joked about his depression. I wish he could have. Wish he would have. He might be alive if he could have come out. But see, in Hollywood, if you're making a movie in Hollywood, production company buys a life insurance policy on you. So if you die during production, they cover the costs. You come out as bipolar, thoughts of suicide, is the insurance company going to write a policy? Career ender. So.
Well, I love that you're bringing it out there. You're out there. You're speaking about it. You said before that you're not going to just have a book. You're going to have like a workbook for people to work through.
Yeah, it'd be 2 actual physical books. One will be the 42 stories, be about 200 pages. And then the workbook will be another 200 pages. And it's for each of those 42 problems, whether it's drugs and alcohol, pornography addiction, raising a special needs child, living with an adult parent who's winding, you know, there's a wide variety of problems. For each of those in the workbook will be suggestions, clinical suggestions, resources. Of course, each of the fellows will give you what they're doing to cope, which, as you said, that's what guys are. Guys don't take advice. I told you, my wife will tell me to do something, and I go, nah, I'm not going to do that. And if my barber tells me that's what I need to be doing, I'll do it. I don't.
Just a guy thing.
Well, it's something called toxic masculinity. We just pitched a podcast to Google. Google has an initiative. They want 6 podcasts that reach people that are not well served on the podcast landscape. In other words, minorities, whether it's people of other ethnic, religious, ethnic, sexual orientation. So we got a guy, African-American gentleman from North Carolina. He's mayor, but he was an inmate. He's got a book called Inmate to Mayor, which Richard Branson, I don't know if you ever met Richard Branson, but Branson said, you need to write a book. And then Richard Branson was kind enough to write the foreword. So we got the African-American inmate, now mayor. We've got a young woman who's Pakistani. She's 30. She's schizoaffective, had 3 suicide attempts. She's working on her master's in social work, also working very hard to keep her mother from arranging a marriage because they're old school. And then you got the crazy white guy. So we're hoping that checks enough boxes in that, and it's called Toxic Masculinity. Subtitled, Some Prisons Don't Have Bars. Men are imprisoned by this. Boys don't cry. Men pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Men don't go seek help. Men don't go to therapy. They just end up blowing their brains out, unfortunately. By the way, that's in the U.S. especially. More women attempt suicide than men, but more men actually carry it through because they tend to use guns. And there's often no coming back. Although I had a conversation over the weekend with a guy who shot himself in the chest and a suicide attempt, and he missed his heart. He wakes up in ICU like, oh man, I thought I was a loser before this. I can't even kill myself.
Oh, God.
I know. And he said what changed his mind about the whole thing was when his mom came to see him in the ICU, and he saw the look on his mom's face. He goes, that's it. It's never going to happen again. And my mom carried 2 children to term that didn't make it before she had me. Who has the courage after 2 to term to try again? So my feeling is I I need to work as hard to keep me here as she did to get me here. And by the way, I've got 2 stories in the book. 2 of those 42 are mine. One of them's about my first marriage, and how that sort of was the genesis of my comedy career, because in my last TED Talk I said suicide secret to my success. I realized I was miserable married, but she was a wonderful woman, just not for me. I was in selling insurance, great business, but not for me. Wasn't going to the comedy store to do amateur night, which is, by the way, where I met Robin Williams at the comedy store in San Diego. And I figured, if I don't change, I'm going to kill myself sooner rather than later. And that was incredibly empowering, because I realized what I got to lose. Quit my job, divorce my wife, try comedy. I think it'll work, but if it doesn't, I can still kill myself. Come on. So, and I figured out that a lot of entrepreneurs and entertainers had the same basic. I think Anthony Bourdain, he was at Vassar. He was not studying culinary, but food was his love. And I bet he came to the point where he thought, you know what? Great school, great program, but this is not it's not my life. If I stay here, I'm going to kill myself. So he thought, I'll roll the dice, go to the Culinary Institute. Look what happened. Kate Spade, working at Mademoiselle magazine, editor for some accessories section or something. Great job. But I think she realized, I don't want to be reviewing other people's fashions. I should have a fashion line. This is not my life. And, if I quit my job, if I don't quit my job, I'm going to kill myself. So I'm going to quit my job. And if it doesn't work out, have my own fashion line. But again, I think she got to the point, and this is really sad, I think, because somebody said she didn't seek treatment near the end because she didn't want to damage her happy-go-lucky brand. I'm just, and then it breaks my heart that was her reasoning. Yeah. But so we're hoping the book will do what I do and the other 2 do when we speak, is allow people, give them cover to give voice to their feelings and experiences. I just did the Air Force Base I mentioned. I saw some of the guys as I was leaving. They just had lunch, and they came over and go, man, listen, there are half a dozen of us at the table. That was the only topic of conversation, was all the stuff that you said. Now, I bet you they'd never had a conversation like that before I arrived. It just gives you cover to go, you know what that guy said about whatever? I kind of feel the same. And I don't know if I told you this, but when I do one of those, I do a session, then a little Q&A with everybody. And then I say, look, if you got a question you'd like to ask me individually, if you don't want to stand up in front of the whole group and go, I'm crazy, can you help me? Then I'll take some time. I'll be here till everybody's questions answered. And I asked the Air Force to please set aside a room with a door. And when I went down to that area where they had the room with the door, there are 8 people lined up. And I took them one at a time. And I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm not a diagnostician. I didn't even say the Holiday Inn Express last night. But it was general questions. My dad, he's got a tumor. I mean, it's not cancerous, but it could kill him because it's fast growing. I'm here, he's there. My mom goes to work. My dad's talking about the dog's getting older. Maybe we should put the dog down. Bad sign if you're going to, make sure the dog is, I said, well, if you think he's depressed, you need to ask him, are you having thoughts of suicide? She had nowhere to turn. She didn't know where, what do I do? I'm at a distance. My mom's at work. I really think, I asked him, how's he doing? He goes, fine, honey, fine. Because we're people with mental illness. There's a reason I have a Screen Actors Guild card. I'm a great actor. People go, can you act? I go, acted like I was happily married to my first wife for 5 years. What do you think? So, anyway, that's starting the conversation, giving them a chance. One guy didn't want to go to get in line with everybody even. Because in the military, if you appear to have a mental illness, that could be career limiting if you got a top secret, whatever. And this base had a lot of people with top secret clearance. So he just stopped me on the way out. He goes, hey, man, I'd love to text you. And I gave him my business card and said, yeah, just text. So yesterday I got a text from them. So, they want to, and by the way, I give out my phone number in my keynote. People think I'm lost in my mind, which of course we both know I have. But I put it up on the screen. That's my phone number. Text me, call me, because I tell them, look, if you're having a crisis, call the suicide, prevention lifeline. If you're just having a bad day and it's getting worse, call somebody crazy. Call me, because I'm less likely to be judgmental. I'm not gonna, they call it shit all over you. I'm not gonna tell you should do this, you should do that. I'm just gonna validate your BS. Oh man, that's awful. Oh dear God. Yeah. So.
Which is incredible thing. I think most people that either know someone in a situation or are in a situation, it's that fear of judgment.
Oh God, the stigma. Oh my Lord. Well, and here's the
I
thing.
can't ask for help, so then people will know.
Well, exactly. And in some communities, it's worse. My friend, who's the Muslim woman, her TED Talk, I helped her get her first one. I helped her get her second one. It's going to be in February. Second one's about, first one's called Relapse as Part of Recovery. She goes, if I'd known that relapse was just sort of a part of recovery when I was 11, I would have had a much happier life to today. The second one is, how do you come out? It's almost like coming out as gay. How do you come out as somebody who has mental illness, depression? And then how do you come out as someone who's suicidal? Because that's two sets of stigma right there. Stigma that you're depressed, stigma that, so yeah, she's had friends who've come out as depressed and suicidal and to their folks. And the folks are like, oh my God, I was kind of hoping you were gay. Because, you know, they're going to wrap their mind around gay. But so that's going to be her, you know, how do you, if you are depressed and having thoughts, so how do you come out to the world? I did my first TED Talk. When my wife sat down to watch my TED Talk, I said, look, don't push play yet. There's a half a dozen things I'm about to tell you. You have no idea how depressed I was, that I knew what the barrel of my gun tastes like, how close I came to pulling the trigger and why I didn't do it. I mean, we covered up because, you know, we don't want to be a burden to those around us. That, by the way, that was another question. How could they do that to the people left behind? Very selfish. Well, see, in my mind, I had $1 million life insurance policy. I pulled the trigger because we just filed bankruptcy. I pulled the trigger, my wife gets $1 million. I was literally worth more dead than alive. So I thought it was an unselfish act. And of course, the world would see it as, how could you leave her behind? Well, I left her with $1 million. I mean, that's, you know, but that's, by the way, why I didn't pull the trigger. I hadn't had the life insurance policy long enough to make it pay. You have to have it 24 months or they just give you the premium back. After 24 months, they paid the $1 million. So there was still a little piece of my
22.
Yeah, still a little piece of my rational mind going, no. You're not going to leave her heartbroken and broke. So I thought, well, you know what? I'll wait 2 months and a day and then I can pull the trigger. And things got a little better. Bankruptcy went through. Phone call stopped. My mood lifted a bit. And I, you know, made it over that hump. And but yeah, if it had been 24 months, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, well, thank God you didn't take it out sooner, and thank God for the guy that you called and asked for insurance.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I called him up. My insurance
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. And he hung up the phone, said to his wife, I think Frank's going to kill himself. Because he had delivered checks, death benefits for guys that called up and said, or women, how long? Oh, great. Okay, thanks very much. Click. Next thing you know, bang, gone. So, yeah, it's weird how it worked out. And I am glad I'm still here. I think I may be still here to do just this, to speak, to write the book, to share the stories. Because, you know, people who line up, and I've had people come up and say, you know, Frank, I've been in therapy 4 years, 2 therapists. Nobody's ever mentioned suicide, chronic suicidality. She goes, I'm listening to symptoms. I'm thinking, dear God, that's me. So I said, well, go back to your therapist. Mention the symptoms. Don't tell them you heard it from a comedian, for God's sakes. And yeah, watch this comic. And because I get that question, comedian doing depression. What the hell do you know?
It makes it so powerful, and then you can, because you are a comedian and you do it with such charm and charisma, it makes a really tough subject like bearable. Yes. It makes you be able to and take it in, whether you're the person who's feeling like that or the person that knows someone but don't understand them.
Yes.
The way you deliver it just opens everyone up to listen and receive what you say, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, the way they pitched it on the military base was not your ordinary military briefing. So, you know, because I'm joking with them, and and I mean, it's the general was sitting right down in front of a woman, first woman general on that base, and she had lost an airman to suicide. He was being court-martialed the night before the suicide. He asked her, couldn't she dismiss the court-martial? She said, no, I can't. And he didn't show up at the court-martial. He ended his life before he got, and so she's carrying that around. I think that's one of the reasons they brought me in, because she felt the weight of this. We need to do something. So yeah, and unfortunately, it's a growth industry.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for spending your time jumping on a live with me today.
Yeah, well,
I hope everyone gets behind you and supports your book. Let me know when it's out. We can do a quick live. Give it a big shout out. Anyone out there who knows people, I want people to get behind you, support you. buy it, get it into schools, get it into
Yeah.
libraries, get it. This should go everywhere, this book, and people need to learn to just talk about it. Even just your TED Talk. Watch his TED Talk. It's in the link below in a comment. Just things to say and not to say.
Oh
It
God,
seems
yes.
so
Oh
obvious,
Lord.
but people just say silly things because they don't understand.
Well, they want to
So
help,
even
but they
if
just, you know, they can be
don't know how.
sympathetic. They can't be empathetic. That's the problem. They can't. My wife goes, "How could it be that bad?" I go, "Look, if you crawl into my head when I'm at the bottom for a couple of minutes, you crawl in there, you come out screaming. You would. I mean, how the strength that people it takes to live with that day after day after day. You know, and sometimes, like I said, you know, my goal is to give people the resources so that when they wake up in the morning, they can still move the rock. That's bottom line.
Well, that's awesome and brilliant, and I'm excited to see the finished product. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Well, my phone number's there if somebody's, having a bad day. Bye, guys.
And everyone watching the replay, share it out to all the guys you know and love out there.
Yes, because I think women are going to be buying the book for the men they love.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.